Hi everybody, this is Mr. Marchetti and welcome to Algebra 2. This is your very first Algebra 2 video help lesson. And before I get into it, let me give you an idea of how you can use these videos to make you successful in this class. Okay, let's say that you either missed class or maybe you just want more practice on a topic, maybe studying for a test or something, or you didn't quite get it during class. That's cool. These videos are here to help. Right? The nice thing is that you can go at your own pace. I would suggest getting yourself a notebook or some paper just to do some notes on, because you're going to have the ability to pause this and take the notes at your pace. Let's say I went too fast during class, or if you were just absent, everything that you see on these videos is information that you would have learned in class. It's all matching with each other 100%. So it's a good way to study a little extra or make up what you missed. Okay, so you're going to have notes to take. So take your time with it. You're also going to have example problems. All these example problems are unique. None of them match what would have been in class. So if you were in class, you're going to see different examples, giving you a better idea of how to do something. Okay, so this is a great tool for you to practice. You're also going to have you try problems. And you're going to hear me say something along the lines of pause the video, try them out, and then resume when you're ready to check. That's not just like a random suggestion. You should really do that. You should really try the problem out, show your work, and then resume the video, because then you'll be able to check your work with what I have been doing and explaining on the screen. Okay, so that's what I really think that you should try doing with these. And from what I've heard from people in the past with my other websites, it really seems to work. So let's get into this lesson right here, and we'll see how this whole thing should work. Okay, lesson number 1, we're in the unit review right now. So we're going to be talking about some of the most basic right now, which is real number arithmetic. Again, maybe if you want to take a second to pause and write this stuff down, that's up to you. But if you miss these notes, you might want them so you know how these things work. Right? Here we have the real number line. When we're talking about addition and subtraction, it's really just a way of counting, right? We could count towards the positives forever and ever, towards positive infinity, or we could count towards negative infinity. Now, depending on which way we're counting would be is if we're adding or subtracting, right? If we're adding two numbers, we're generally moving towards positive infinity. When we're subtracting, we usually move this way, right? For example, if I had 3 plus 5, I would start at 3, and I'd say, all right, if I counted 5 in the positive direction, where would I land? We land at 8, right? Or if I was to start at, let's say, -1, and I count and subtract 6, that would be saying move 6 in the negative direction, right? And that would put me at -7. So that's how addition and subtraction really works, which means that we have addition and subtraction rules. We can consider those to be basically the same operation, right? When you look at, like, for example, PEMDAS or PEMDAS, whatever you want to call it, right? Addition and subtraction, we can do those two at the same exact time. And that's because addition and subtraction is really just a faster way of counting. All right, so let's look at some rules that we want to be sure of. If we're adding a positive and positive, we're going to just add like usual. If we're adding a positive plus a negative, we're going to subtract the smaller value from the large, but keep the larger sign. That's going to work the same if we're adding a negative and a positive together. Because remember, we're counting, it's just telling which way we're counting from. And then finally, if we're taking a negative and adding negative, we're going to add like usual, but we'll keep that negative sign because we're starting in a negative place, heading in the negative direction. Okay, so I have an example of each right here. We're going to try them out. If you need to pause this real quick to write them down, that's up to you. All right, 32 plus 9, both are positive, so I know that we're going to add like usual. It's going to stay positive. That will give us 41. 25 plus -8, well, it says here that I'm going to subtract the smaller from the larger. So 8 is smaller. So if I did 25 minus 8, that's going to give us 17. And I want to take the larger sign. 25 is larger. It's positive. So we'll keep 17 positive. Negative plus positive. It says it's the same as above. So I'm going to take the larger, which is 13. I'll subtract a smaller, which is 11. That gives me 2. But the larger one here is negative. Right? 13 was negative. So we get a solution of -2. right? We want to take the larger sign. And finally, a negative plus a negative, well, we're going to add like usual. We'll just keep that negative sign. So we know this is going to be negative 5 plus 12. That's 17. Okay, so we've done one example of each. There are 4 more for you to try. So if you would like to pause the video, try them out, and resume when you're ready to check, I would show all my work if necessary so that we can compare answers. Alright, let's see how you did. 108 plus 20, those are both positive, so we'll add like usual. We should get 128. 16 and negative 44, so I'm going to subtract 16 from 44, and we get 28. The larger value here is negative, so our answer should also be negative. So negative 28. 28 and negative 5, so these are both negative, so I know I'm going to have a negative result. 28 plus 5, well, that's 33. And then finally, negative 5 plus 9, well, I'll do 9 minus 5, that gives me 4. Take the larger, which is 9, positive, keep that sign. So we get positive 4. Okay, pretty easy to do. Keep those rules in mind when you're doing addition and subtraction. Now, I know this might sound silly, and you're like, well, I did this in algebra or even pre-algebra. We need to have these skills mastered, because if we don't have this mastered now, wait until we start throwing x's and y's in there. Okay? Same idea with multiplication. So we have a new multiplication little rule right here. If you don't have this memorized, pause the video and write this down. Memorize it. Okay? Here's how it works. If I take a positive and I multiply a positive number, my result should be positive. If I multiply positive times a negative, the negative is going to win, and the sign of our product will be negative. Same idea with a negative times a positive. That product will be negative as a result, but the one that a lot of people mess up, negative times negative, that double negative is going to give us a positive product. Okay, so if we multiply like usual, if we have our multiplication fact down, then we have to just kind of keep an eye on what our signs will be. Okay, pretty easy to do. So let's do a couple of examples, right? I have one of each right here. Here I have a positive times positive, so I know my result should be a positive in the end. 6 times 7 is 42. Here, 3 and negative 8. Well, 3 times 8, that's 24, but I have a positive times negative. Positive times negative says should be a negative product. So negative 24. Negative 5 times positive 9. Negative times positive is negative. 5 times 9 is 45. And finally, negative, negative, we should get a positive result. Those are going to cancel out. 2 times 4 gives us 8. Okay, so you have 4 here to try. Try without a calculator. That's my suggestion. Pause the video and resume when you're ready to check. Right. 5 times negative 2, positive times negative is negative. 5 times 2 gives us 10, negative 10. 11 times 8, those are both positive, so that should give us positive 88. Here we have double negative, those will cancel out. 3 times 6 gives us positive 18. And finally, negative 7 times 4, so we have negative times positive, we should get a negative result. 7 and 4, that's 28. Okay, hopefully you got all those right. We're almost done with this lesson. What we're going to look at now is division. Division is going to be a lot of what we do in mathematics. In fact, a lot of times we're going to try to find solutions, and we'll have to divide in order to get there. The division that we're going to do, though, might not be as straightforward. Maybe we're going to have a polynomial chain. Maybe we'll have square roots involved, right? There's all sorts of things we need to be worried about. So division is going to be a very key player in Algebra 2. So let's work on how division works in general. Okay. First of all, in this class, if you're working with division, you want to leave your answer as a fraction unless you're instructed to, right? It'll tell you to write as a decimal, or it will say round to the nearest whatever. Okay, if you see those instructions, then that's okay for you to type into a calculator. If not, leave it as a fraction. Okay, Mr. Marchetti does not like decimals. There's a reason for it. If you're in class, I'd love to tell you why. Second, you must simplify all fractions, right? If we have, for example, 10 over 4, I can reduce 10 over 4. I need to think about my reduction properties. It's pretty easy. It's what's the highest number both terms are divisible by, and I want to reduce. Okay, if I do that and I notice, oh, I can still reduce, then continue to reduce. That's fine. And finally, follow all multiplication rules. This right here, pretty basic, right? If I have a positive divided by a negative, it's the same thing as a positive times a negative, right? So we want to keep those multiplication rules in mind. So here are a couple of problems. If you want to write these down real quick, we're going to go over them right now. If we take positive 30 divided by 6, both of those are divisible by 2. Both are divisible by 3, but the highest that they're both divisible by is actually 6. So if I divide each of these terms by 6, I'm going to get a 5 and a 1. So we've put it as a decimal, and now we simplified. But that's not as simplified as it can be, because 5 over 1 we can still write as just plain old 5, right? That would be the most simplified reduced form. Second problem, negative 18 divided by negative 27. Well, we have a double negative situation, so our negatives will cancel out. And again, we want to think about what's the highest these are both divisible by. The highest number they're both divisible by is 9. If I divide 18 by 9, I get 2. 27 by 9, we get 3. 2/3 is the most reduced that fraction can be. Notice I didn't get any decimals, right? 2/3 is a far more accurate answer than 0.6 repeated. Okay, 24 divided by negative 14. Well, I have a positive divided by a negative, so I know my answer is going to be negative. I'm going to put that right next to the fraction bar. I could assign it to either the top or the bottom. Here I kept it with the 14, but my answer, I'm just going to have it next to the fraction in general. These look both to be even, so if I divide both by 2, that'll give 12 and 7, and that's as reduced as we can get for this one. Finally, negative 10 divided by 2. Well, these are both even, so if I divide by 2, we'll get negative 5 over 1, and again we can reduce that to just plain old negative 5. Okay, so there are 4 for you to try right here. Pause the video and then resume when you're ready to check your answers. Alright, let's see how you did with these. The last 4 for this video. If we take negative 44 divided by negative 28, hopefully you got rid of those double negatives. And then you would have said, alright, these are both divisible by 4 at most. So 11 over 7 should be your first answer. Our second problem, 6 divided by 15. The highest number they're both divisible by is 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 15 divided by 3 is 5. So 2 over 5. No decimals anywhere on this paper so far. 26 divided by a negative 13. Positive divided by negative, my answer is going to be negative. I know that. 26 divided by 13. Hey, this is going to be 2 over 1, which is just plain old 2. Negative 2. And finally, negative 30 over 12. Well, I know my answer is going to be negative. These are both divisible by 6. So if I do that by 6, it gives me 5 and 2. So negative 5 over 2. Okay? Hopefully you got all those problems correct. Again, this was a pretty easy lesson. We kept it as short as possible, and that's what you have to look forward to for most of these lessons. Very straightforward, very directed towards what our notes would have been in class. So if you need this as a refreshment or a study tool, it will work that way. Or if you just miss class, very easy. You get your notes now. you should be able to go from here. You should have everything covered. You don't have to worry about a quiz or test. Okay, so that was the end of lesson 1. Hopefully this wasn't too grueling for you, and you'll be ready for the next lessons. All right, I'll see you in lesson 2.